Hey everyone, my name is Rooster and welcome back to Mechabellum. In today's replay I have something quite special as I managed to get a fortress to level 8. Sadly not quite level 9 but still quite the feat I would say, and it was an entertaining game to say the least. So let's get right into it. My opponent is Mathis Might, who takes the Fire Badger spec pack here with the Fangs and the Stormcallers. Just a solid pack overall. Stormcallers don't really have too many bad matchups overall. Although the hit points of those packs have been touched slightly in the latest patch. And I decided to go for a pack that many people don't necessarily like, but I have kind of grown to do pretty well with in the recent weeks, I would have to say, as I've been, well, kind of playing around with it a bit more. And that's going to be the Steel Balls and the Fangs. It has a very nice amount of health, a lot of packs over 5k, which is quite the big difference compared to most starting packs. And even though it's a little bit awkward because of course the Fangs are much slower than the Steel Balls, if you play it aggressively like so, it tends to do pretty well. So this is how I like to set it up. Fangs in the front as if it were crawlers, and then Arclights paired up with the Steel Balls. They should not be able to get missiled, I believe. And I decided to put the third Fang pack here behind some Steel Balls because maybe, just maybe, we can try and do some Fang gaming, depending on what cards we get offered. Now, opponent here goes for double arc and a pretty standard defensive position. Symmetrical, Fangs behind the towers, one in the middle to get a pull. Steel Balls are having a pretty tough time, but some of them do manage to survive, and all we need to do here is get to the tower. Fangs doing a fantastic job, though, managing to stay in between the Stormcallers and prevent those from dying too fast, and that will mean that we don't quite manage to get the tower here on the right side of the board. Left side finally does manage to get there, but now that the Stormcallers are free to fire onto the left side of the board, I am not entirely sure if we'll manage to take this one home. We do get the debuff, but Arclight will take at least a couple shots to be able to take down this Stormcaller. Maybe the Fangs can take down one more. They will, just about. Only one Fang left, but yeah. Take a tiny bit of damage, but only 100. Still above 5k. Pretty happy with this overall. And now round number 2. A bunch of good items and some interesting cards. Subsidized Steel Ball here could be an idea. Laser Sight and Haste Module, both items that you probably do want to pick up if nothing else is to your liking. And yeah, Mathis Might goes for the Haste Module. Very cheap, get some good stats. And I decided to pick up the subsidized Steel Balls here, because I figured, well, into this board I can see subsidized Steel Ball doing pretty well. I can always click Mechanical Division to get a bit more chaff, and in the early game it's not bad at all if I want to pair it with something like the Fangs. And that's what we do. We throw a Steel Ball here onto the flank with a Fang behind it, and yeah, that is all that we managed to purchase for now in this round. Opponent does get the Fire Badgers, of course. Let's see how this goes. We do have to spawn onto the flank, but this looks pretty good. Opponent did add some crawlers, but with the spawned-in Fangs and the Steel Balls, I think we should do just fine. The main fight is going a bit worse for wear, that's certain. Almost all of my units are dead now. But we should get this tower at the very least, and even though I don't think we'll be able to take this round, it was a pretty decent setup. And as long as we don't take too much damage, we can do many rounds like this where we only lose barely, but at least we can try and kind of scale our way into the mid-game. Steel Balls doing a pretty good job still. I kind of expected them to die earlier than that, but eventually the Stormcallers will hit them. And yeah, Fangs without techs will definitely struggle against these Stormcallers. But again, maybe this is even a tie. Not quite. One Stormcaller lives, so we take a 50. And here, round number 3, I get quite fortunate as we get a Fortress drop. And, I mean, that is about as good as you can get if you want to do some Fang gaming. Fortress Fang, a classic. Recently, a bit of a different build has been meta. And a lot of Heimamar players have had success with it in tournaments as well, which is the fortresses with Fang spawn. But as you can see, I decided to take it off. I do still think that that build is very strong, and it's probably easier to set up as well, because all you need is fortresses with Fang spawn, and then just more fortresses, and you will be able to win a lot of rounds. But I still think Launcher Overload is very strong, and I'm not really willing to get rid of any of the other techs to fit the Fang production. So let's see if we can justify the change in tech in this game. Opponent picks up the Scorpion, also picks up a Mustang, and has the haste module to go with it. So pretty nice round, all things considered. I decided to put the fortress here on the flank because I want to eventually click barrier, and since I already have quite a bit of investment onto the flank, I'd rather not sell out and just try and establish a scary fortress over here while I can. Range on the Fangs, my opponent decides to oil. Left tower here still undefended, I'm taking a bit of a risk there. Also Fang here by me in the top left flank, as I could see that it was relatively undefended, and I think that with the range it might be able to win. Oil does get set on fire, so that's a big benefit. Scorpion there does manage to win out, as our fortress still had to spawn in. But we'll see how this goes. Fangs in the top still fighting. Looks like they do not quite manage to win. But maybe, just maybe, we can burn a couple more units. No, that doesn't seem to be the case. So we do take some damage here on the free unit round. Much more than in the first two losses. But, you know, I'm pretty happy I got this unit onto the flank. And round number 4, we get our power spike. The level 2 Rhino is now available. Opponent decides to range his Mustangs. Take the intensive. I decide to take it as well. And now I sell out of my steel balls, because they aren't really doing too much anymore, and I think that the money is very nice to have. I'd rather have something like this Rhino for a turn, because it does better overall into all of these units. And then we can eventually sell that as well. These steel balls, by the way, I know I did pick up the subsidized, but, you know, when your opponent already has a Scorpion from a free unit drop, I don't think it's worth investing into that much more. And I'm limited in deployments. I want more fortresses, more Fangs. So even if there is maybe some value in mechanical division, I simply can't see myself using deployments for that. So yeah, getting the sell button early, starting to sell out of units I don't need, and preparing to sell out of things like the Rhino and like those steel balls. Intensive goes onto the flank, and yeah, I have to say this blue gilded skin does look very nice indeed. And now we can finally match that Scorpion, as we have a level 2 fortress to match the level 2 on that Scorpion. And we do insta-lock it, and yeah, this time around, that won't quite go the same way as last round. I still had to spawn in, but the fortress is now truly engaged in the battle. Another fortress here on the left. We also take some levels on the Fangs. The Rhino, I tried to get into the tower, but it gets distracted, sadly. That's on me. I probably should have just bought a beacon, but I didn't have the money for it, so yeah. Tried my luck, doesn't quite work out. We will manage to get this tower, however, and with some Fangs on the other tower, which is not leveled, might even be able to get that one too. Just a couple Mustangs left alive. Would be the nicest if you could prevent this from leveling. I'm not sure if we'll be able to. Looks like we'll be just fine. And so finally, round 4, we start striking back. And you can immediately see here the benefit, right, of having a lot of hit points. We lost 3 rounds at the start. But now that we've won 1 round, we're still over 1,000 hit points. More healthy than our opponent. Fire available. Both players pick it up. There's a bunch of stuff for me to hit here, and well, I'm willing to try my luck because I wasn't necessarily expecting my opponents to get 4 shields. So I thought, well, there is a good chance that some of the fire will land at least. And I'm willing to gamble, because if it does land, I get a lot of value out of it. We go on the left side, which is my weak side, expecting that maybe he won't put a shield there. Of course, the fortress here, we give barrier. It's a good round to do it, because we expect the fire. And we add a fortress in between our Fangs and our Rhino. We allowed for some good spacing here to make sure that this Rhino can get protected. And that way we absorb a missile that would have slowed the Rhino otherwise. Now, it will end up going down. Opponent went for Scorpion. with double shot. But yeah, this fire lands perfectly, and this fortress should have absolutely zero issues dealing with that. Fortress on the flank also still wins out, and we get the debuff now, so it might even stay alive. If we can get the shield, that is even more economic advantage for us. And also the nice bit about having something like barrier, right? This has been nerfed repeatedly. The cost used to be 300, now it's up to 500, but you can kind of see why. You get so much value out of it throughout the game. Where otherwise you would have had to shield, and in some scenarios, right, you can get shields onto places where normally you can't shield, like on a flank, or even partially onto the enemy board. Now, this round, I believe Melter there was offered, but my opponent didn't pick it up. We could briefly go back, because we did pick it very, very quickly, but it was a free unit round. And yeah, Melter here is available, and I thought my opponent would pick this, but instead both of us go for the Typhoon into Cell. It is the highest value if you just want to get the resources, but I really thought my opponent would pick the Melter. But he seems to just believe that Scorpion here can do the trick, and, well, I don't. I think that these fortresses are going to be way too strong for Scorpion to deal with, and I think the only way Scorpion ever wins against specifically this type of setup with launcher overload is if the Scorpion is heavily out-leveled, right? But that's not the case. This fortress here is the same level as these level 1s, and the one on the flank is now level 3, leveled by itself. And we have an intensive training available too, so now it's level 4. That is, I think, way too tall of a task for a Scorpion to deal with. At the end of the day, this is a giant, this is not. And they have, you know, somewhat of a similar profile in terms of pretty tanky unit with good ground DPS. But yeah, this is just the bigger, better version of it. Fangs, by the way, now finally do have Mech Rage. Nice thing about getting some extra cash from these free unit drops. And I have to say, the Scorpions are doing a pretty good job here. The left side did crumble relatively quickly, but that's also, I think, a result of the fact that these Scorpions now have double techs with the range and the overload. Double shot. And my fortresses don't really have any battle techs. They just have the protective tech in the form of barrier. So I haven't really hit my power spike, and my opponent has. Now, he could also click acid attack, obviously, but that doesn't really help with breaking the shields. So I feel like this is the big power spike in terms of, well, tech combinations. Looks like our big fortress will end up going down, and I wasn't quite expecting this, but I still have an ace up my sleeve, and that's going to be teching the overload as well as the range here, and make sure that, well, we can DPS way, way faster. Bunch of good units or items show up here. We have heavy armor or even a second intensive. Both look quite appealing, I have to say. I end up going for heavy armor because, well, I wanted to just make the biggest fortress available. You could say if you took intensive, you might have been able to level it twice, but, well, I just wanted the armor there. And you can see it's getting quite tanky. Level 4 now, 316k hit points. We don't have the defense enhancement on the tower yet. And what we do have is launcher overload and range this turn. So now we have triple tech. And I think that this will turn the tide for sure in this matchup between the Scorpions and the Fortresses. Also, we sold the Rhino finally. So we've kind of gotten to a point where we have all the units we need, right? Fangs and Fortresses. Only the Arclights remain from round 1. Opponent here has the oil back off cooldown and picks up the Acid Blast to try and layer them. And hopefully, well, hope that my Fortresses run in there. Let's see how this goes. Fangs, by the way, not the stars of the show, but they're doing pretty good overall. The one on the left here is a little bit left to its own devices, but I have to spend so much money here on those techs and on the fortresses that I can't really do much about this. Let's see. Double shot here on the Scorpions. He did get some levels. means that he will break the shields instantly because he now has that level advantage. But let's see how the rest of the board performs. Obviously, this flank is completely out of control now. You can see that we win this very convincingly. Left side still looks like it is our weak side, but we will get the tower debuff. Now, however, the fortresses are caught in the acid, and layered below that is the oil. So this is definitely not a very nice area to walk through. And the fortresses will go down, but we still have this big guy. And he will take care of another scorpion, grab a level, and perhaps even be able to clean up the rest of the board. I mean, look how slowly this scorpion is killing it, even though it's level 2 with double shot. Fortress, by the way, with overload, is actually pretty good at chaff clearing. It has the same reload speed now as an Arclight, and it only has 2 less splash. So where an Arclight has 7, this has 5, but that's still plenty to do at least some form of chaff clearing. 1 Fang left on the tower here. Will meet its maker. I think it's better for him if he doesn't look behind on what's coming, but yeah, the Giga Fortress there will come out on top. Round number 8, Sandworm shows up, and I think that's just an easy sell. Vulcan would be the same value. It's the same giant, but level 3 instead of level 2. And yeah, we just grabbed the money because at this point, all we need is more fortresses. And that is what we get. Right side, now by the way, got the level 5 intensive onto it as well, because I mean, I was kind of memeing because I wanted to just get as big a fortress as possible on the flank. But also, you know, at the same time, this is very hard to deal with. It's got so much hit points, and that doesn't even mention the barrier here. And yeah, opponent finally realizes that this is too hard to deal with, so grabs himself a melting point. And the melting point does manage to insta-lock there, so nice positioning. Punishes my all-in attempt on the flank. Rest of the board, though, definitely no slouch whatsoever. And we will manage to get the debuff. That's very nice because we still have a fortress here that will manage to take out a scorpion, kill some of those high-level Mustangs, and grab experience to be able to level up itself. And so, while the flank is scary, the main board is starting to look quite menacing as well. Opponent does manage to get another round, though. And the scorpions are holding up better than I thought, to be honest. Round number 9, Smoke Bomb is available, and my opponent picks it up. Amp Core available too, and that's something that I want for one of my other fortresses. Levels here quite important. Barrier does scale with levels, and therefore it's just nice to take those. Incendiary, by the way, is also back off cooldown. So we are getting a lot of spells this game. We just finally got rid of the oil and the acid, but the ground now will be covered with smoke for the next 2 turns and some fire for this round. Now, I have to do something about this insta-lock. I do have the crawlers here, but I decided to add another crawler on top. Part of it will be protected, so he can't really missile this out. And it'll mean that the melting point will get stuck on the crawlers for just a little bit longer. And hopefully that means that this fortress will remain alive and be able to DPS these units down, because it has the damage. Trust me, it does. It deals 37,000 hit points worth of damage every 0.9 seconds. So if it manages to hit the melting point, this will be gone very, very quickly. Finally, we also turn our attention to the left side with a fortress and a crawler in front. I was hoping that the crawler here would distract and allow this fortress to spawn in with the barrier. Let's see how it goes, though. Fangs actually will walk in front, so it looks like we will manage to... Oh, never mind. The scorpion there somehow managing to turn and kill that fortress just in time before it spawns. But right side looks much better. I think the crawlers there did a fantastic job, and there you go. Fortress level 6 versus level 2 Melter is Not a fair fight. But still, smoke and fire did its job. Left side is still a struggle for me. And we'll have to see how much this fortress can get done. Opponent's units are going for the towers though, so we get 9 seconds of debuff twice here. He will have to walk through his own smoke, so I guess that is the benefit. However, I'm not entirely sure if we'll be able to clear all the crawlers, and yeah, with the acid attack now available as well, that is another round going the way of Math and the Scorpions. Route number 10. Orbital Javelin available. And that is something that I instantly pick up because, well, this is probably a spell that benefits me more than him. Since all of my fortresses are level 2, they can at least tank a Javelin. And that's why Math here goes for the safe one onto that level 1 fortress. Could have also thrown it onto the flank, to be honest. This fortress also would die to it. So maybe that would have been a better target. But I decided to turn my attention to the left tower. These Scorpions have been doing really, really well. But if I can just get rid of it, then I think I'll easily get to the tower with these 3 fortresses looking at it. I think the opponent here thought I would jav this pack of units to try and get into this tower. And that's why the tower is level 3 now. And there's this beacon. But yeah, that is not what I was aiming for. More fortresses added onto the right side now with a beacon to try and get around the smoke. Don't want to have more units walking into this. I think my opponent, by the way, could have saved his level 3 Scorpion if he took something like the defense enhancement, the second one from the tower, but it can be a tough read to make. Another Scorpion gets added. I almost hit that as well with the Javelin, but it doesn't look like that will be the case. Now let's see how this plays out. Yeah, that Javelin, absolutely nasty. Gets rid of basically everything in front of that tower. And while it is leveled, but level 2 is not going to be enough to stop these fortresses from taking it. And 7 seconds of debuff is quite a long time when you've got Overlord fortresses running at you from all sides. And we still have this level 8 fortress, by the way. I didn't mention it, but I did level it up twice yet again. And so it's not quite level 9, but it's close. And with 685,000 hit points, that is one of the tankier fortresses you are going to see. Basically cosplaying for a level 2 factory at this point. Even a little bit more hit points than a level 2 factory. And that will be enough. So we get a nice spell there to end things. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened without the Javelin, because obviously these leveled Scorpions were getting the better of these lower level fortresses. The right side flank, though, was definitely a problem for him. He can't really miss all this, so it's hard to fix this situation. At the same time, there were also a lot of spells involved that were good for my opponent. Think of the smoke, the fire, the oil, the acid. So it's kind of fine, I guess, to trade the Javelin that was good for me for all of those other spells. But yeah, Fortress Fang still can be really scary if you get the right cards. And, well, that's also something I guess I forgot. I did get that Fortress on round 3, which definitely allowed me to kind of kickstart this whole composition. And get out of the steel balls, it was a nice idea, but I wasn't expecting those unit drops so soon and to be so good for me. So we just pivot out, slowly sell out of all the units we don't need, and then eventually we get to this type of board state, which is very scary to deal with. Anyway, if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up. Let me know down below what you think of this comp. Have you gotten a level 9 fortress before? Or any other giant for that matter? Let me know. If you want to stay up to date with my latest content, please consider subscribing. And if you want to see me play live, check me out on Twitch. With that being said, take care, guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.